Let's hear from Dan Lanning. So Oregon, number one. Remember, he was asked about this last week. You know what his response was?
I don't care.
I don't care.
Who cares?
Who cares?
Who cares, right?
You know, they had a little food left on their plate.
Yeah, they
I'm gonna
did.
finish that food.
They did.
Good food. Here is Lanning saying, how is your team not affected by being number one?
No, I just don't think we've ever measured ourselves based on what other people think. And that doesn't necessarily change. And we have our own internal goals that, you know, and our plan of what we want to be. And really, at the beginning of every year, everybody asks me what's success look like. And to me, it looks like us playing our best football at the end of the season. So that's our goal, is to put ourselves in position to play our best football and focus on the process, not the result.
I mean, it's a team that wants to ramp up, and I think they've shown you that in a lot of second halves of games of just not really caring. Like, all right, we got our work done this week, guys. Let's get out of here with a win, and we'll just keep working and trying to be our best at the end of November.
You pointed to yesterday's schedule when I said they were in a tier with Georgia, kind of alone right now, that they have this to Michigan, back home, to Wisconsin stuff happening consecutively.
Yeah, Purdue, Michigan, Wisconsin, and this every other week, essentially, for 3-5 weeks.
And I think that's an interesting observation, and maybe it'll rear. I thought what was one takeaway from beating Illinois, it's not that you beat Illinois the way you did. It was that Purdue was maybe the trap hangover. We just beat Ohio State. The emotions are running high. We're number one in the land now. We're going to Lafayette. And no hangover. Well, now we're coming back home. We're number one in the country. Our last home game, we beat Ohio State on national television. Well, here comes a top 20 team, Brett Bielema, physical smash mouth. No. And so, that's what I'm interested in seeing with Michigan. I mentioned how Michigan could maybe pull an upset this week. I think it's the start. It's to keep the crowd in it, get a couple early stops. That defense looks the part. I don't actually buy that that's going to happen because they've had back-to-back weeks where it's been like, hey, you're number one now, short week. Well, clobber.
Is this your letdown spot?
Come home now. You beat Ohio State last time. You played in this stadium. Oh, here comes a top 20 team. Here's the trap letdown. No, not remotely close. And so it's like you've had back-to-back games where some, not all, some have been like, oh, look ahead spot. No, they've handled their business. And I don't know where he ranks as a coach in the country. I'm a big fan of what Dan Lanning is as a coach and what he has shown so far. But one quality he has early in his tenure is I think he has an ability to keep his teams focused. And this weekend will be a big test for that again because they're going to a down Michigan team in Ann Arbor. You go and you smoke Michigan, it may be fair to say on Monday, maybe that doesn't exist with this group, that he's got this team entirely locked in.
Yeah, our buddy Josh Pate on Sunday. Now, he's got a show tonight. We'll have him on the show tomorrow. He teased he thinks this is going to be a chaos weekend, and I'm curious how much he includes this game in the mix on his show tonight.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to him about it tomorrow. Lanning also, we touched on this yesterday, but I think the difference between this team and Oregon teams of years past has been the depth that they have. You know, we mentioned jokingly who's the Heisman of their team so far. Was it Birch earlier this year? And then Birch goes down, and the defense is just as fine without him. Like, they just have been able to plug and play. And Lanning was asked about his depth that he's built.
A lot of it's credit to our players not waiting for their moment to step up, but stepping up and being prepared for their moment. You know, we've had a lot of guys that maybe they weren't going to be the guy that took a ton of the reps at the beginning, and their reps have increased as their production's increased. And, you know, you say at the beginning of every season, like, I don't know if people realize what this guy's role might become, but we've had a lot of guys' roles that have grown because of, you know, availability, you know, and being available. But also they were ready for those moments when those moments came.
You know, one other note for them at the end of the year, too, that I think they touched on a little bit on the broadcast last week, but they have been very cautious with red shirts and how they're using them with certain guys and wanting to make sure that you keep them under 4 games or 4 games or below for the regular season. Once you get to conference title games and playoff stuff, that doesn't count. You can play anybody. Those games are freebies for everybody. Like, this is a game, I know we've joked about the Dante Moore stuff. If you're able to separate, Dante Moore will play this weekend.
Oh, see, I always wondered if it was the Maryland game more for Dante
No,
Moore.
I think this one would be a symbolic thing for him because he's a Michigan kid going home.
Touche.
And so he's only played
Good
in
point.
2 games. They have 2 more that they could use. So you got 4 more games left from the regular. I think they've just been
No, that's a good point.
really
The
smart about
hometown
how they're
thing would
using
be
it.
a big deal for him.
Yeah, Jay Harris is another guy who everybody's like, hey, look at that. He looked great against Purdue. Are we going to? They want to redshirt him. So he's played in 1 game. He's got 3 that he can play the rest of the year. They've just been very smart with that.
Did he give an update? I don't recall an update on Birch.
He believes it sounds like they're both going to be able to play this week. Him and Ferguson should, but they were both back at practice. I had heard that Birch was back last week at practice. Not quite there yet, but was progressing towards coming back, and it seems like they both will play this weekend.
Pretty remarkable to not miss a beat on the defensive line without him.
Both those guys coming back will be a nice boost. Oregon at Michigan. We'll have more on that game throughout the course of the week.